several of the remaining World Cup teams are reportedly threatening to boycott the tournament, claiming Argentina has been repeatedly favored by referees, especially after the controversial match against Egypt. What started as frustration is now turning into a direct challenge to FIFA. But the accusations don't stop there. Let me catch you up. Argentina's round of 16 game against Egypt should have been a straightforward story. Reigning champions, Talisman closing out his last World Cup dramatic finish. Instead, it turned into the loudest officiating fight of the tournament. Egypt went 2-0 up inside an hour, and were 11 minutes from knocking out the champions. Then it all came apart. Christian Romero pulled one back. Messi equalized, and Enzo Fernandez won it deep into stoppage time. 3 goals in 13 minutes. 8 teams are left in this World Cup, and right now half of them sound angrier at FIFA than they do focused on the football in front of them. The story running through every press conference and federation statement this week is the same one. Argentina keeps getting the calls, and the teams left in this tournament have had enough. So let's get into why the sides still standing in this World Cup are lining up against the people running it, and why Egypt's exit is the match everyone keeps pointing back to. Argentina against Egypt is where this whole thing starts, and it's the game that's got every remaining federation watching the referees a little closer. Argentina against Egypt is where this whole thing starts, and it's the game that's got every remaining federation watching the referees a little closer. This was supposed to be a straightforward story. Reigning champions, one last World Cup run for their captain, a dramatic finish. Instead, it turned into the loudest officiating fight of the tournament, and it's still going. Egypt controlled most of the night. They went 2 goals up with barely a quarter of the match left to play, and for a while it looked like the biggest upset of the round of 16. The reigning world champions trailed the Pharaohs before completing a 3-2 comeback win in their last 16 match, with less than a third of the normal time remaining on the clock when Egypt led 2-0 despite having a goal disallowed. Then it all came apart. Christian Romero headed one back, Messi leveled it, and deep into stoppage time, Enzo Fernandez won it. Mostafa Zico had netted to give Egypt a 2-0 lead. But all momentum shifted onto Argentina's side when Messi assisted Romero, the first of 3 consecutive goals. 3 goals in 13 minutes. Numbers that big usually mean a team just collapsed. Except almost nobody watching that half was talking about Egypt's legs giving out. They were talking about the referee. Here's the specific moment everyone keeps replaying. A video assistant referee decision ruled out a Mostafa Zico goal when Egypt were winning 1-0. Zico had slotted the ball in from close range off a Salah pass, launched into a celebration, and then had the goal wiped when VAR spotted a foul in the build-up. Egypt's players couldn't believe it, and it didn't stop there. As the game slipped away, the referees started handing out card after card to Egypt's side. One to goalkeeper Mostafa Shober, one to Hamdi Fathi, one to Marwan Attia. Meanwhile, on the other end, officials declined to check on a potential foul by Alexis Mac Allister in the immediate build-up to Argentina's winning goal. That's the pattern that set everyone off. Foul checked and disallowed for Egypt. Same kind of contact, not even reviewed for Argentina. The reaction from Egypt's camp was immediate, and it was loud. Coach Hassam Hassan didn't hold back in the press conference. He said the whole tournament felt like it was built around one team, telling reporters flatly that the World Cup was directed towards Argentina. He went further, describing the officiating as unfair and adding that the referee was unfair, that he was wasting the effort of an entire nation, and that the cup itself was being steered toward Argentina. He was booked for his protest. The referee showed him yellow for crossing his arms, a gesture that's actually the FIFA signal for reporting racist abuse, which only added to the confusion in the stadium that night. His federation backed him within a day. The Egyptian FA put out a statement that pulled no punches, saying it cannot remain silent regarding the refereeing decisions witnessed during the match against Argentina, as well as the failure to make appropriate use of the video assistant referee system. They went further than words. The Egyptian FA is understood to have called for FIFA to remove referee Francois Letixier from the remainder of the World Cup entirely. And according to multiple outlets, EFA President Hani Abo Rida has submitted an official complaint against Letixier and his assistants. This is where the story stopped being just Egypt's problem. Once the complaint went in, pundits who have zero connection to Egypt started backing the argument up. Alan Shearer, the Premier League's record scorer, posted about the inconsistency directly, pointing out that either both are fouls or neither is, but they told us they won't re-referee. Ian Wright went even further on air, arguing that, if you're going to pull it back for Argentina on the edge of the box to disallow a goal, you have to pull it back for this one with Mo Salah. He's been caught. Whatever we say, it might be minimal. He's been caught, and then they go up the other end. Jamie Carragher piled on too, saying flat out that in the Premier League or La Liga or Serie A, it would have been a goal even after VAR review. Three of the biggest names in English football punditry, none of them Egyptian, all landing on the same conclusion within 24 hours of the final whistle. And then Egypt's own players started talking. Mostafa Zico, the man whose goal got wiped, came out and called the entire tournament rigged. Salah, playing what was almost certainly his last World Cup match, stood on the pitch in tears as the whistle went, trying to calm his own coach down mid-argument with the referee, even while he clearly felt the same anger. Hassan didn't stop at the post-match presser either. He told reporters that once he got home, he wasn't watching another minute of this World Cup because, as he put it, there was no justice in it. So that's the spark: one match, one disallowed goal, one non-review, and a chorus of voices. A head coach, a federation president, a scoring legend, two former England internationals, all pointing the same direction. And that chorus didn't stay confined to Egypt's exit. It started pulling in teams that hadn't even played Argentina yet. Once people started digging, Egypt didn't look like an isolated incident anymore. It looked like the fourth or fifth chapter in a book that had been building since the group stage. Go back to the previous round. Argentina were up against Cape Verde in extra time, clinging to a lead, when a strange sequence played out that fans immediately flagged. Cape Verde was chasing a corner kick when the Canadian referee halted play because an Argentine defender needed treatment. And both players and fans were stunned when that same player came back onto the field even before play resumed. That's not supposed to happen. If you leave for treatment, you're supposed to stay off a beat longer. The referee was accused of bending a law in Argentina's favor, and it happened at the exact moment Cape Verde had momentum and a set piece to press with. It became one more entry in a running theme, Argentina being refereed differently than everyone around them. Go back further into the group stage, and there's Argentina against Austria. Messi opened the scoring off a passage of play Austria's bench was furious about. Messi scored after a build-up involving a challenge by Alexis Mac Allister on Austria's Xaver Schlager, who went down and whose teammates argued a foul should have been given. But the referee waved play on, and VAR reviewed it and chose not to intervene. Austria's manager Ralf Rangnick wasn't shy about it afterward, publicly questioning why no foul was given and why VAR didn't send it to review. So now you've got three separate matches, three different referees, three different confederations of opponents: Austria, Cape Verde, Egypt, all describing a version of the same thing. A foul that gets checked and punished when it happens to Argentina's opponent, and a near-identical foul that doesn't get a second look when it happens to Argentina. Even outlets that don't cover a single Argentine game started running the numbers. One widely read piece framed it bluntly, tracing the pattern all the way back to the last World Cup, and noting that the Argentina controversy machine was back, with fans for the second straight World Cup asking why Messi and Argentina seemed to get away with moments other teams wouldn't. A pattern they trace back to 2022, when Messi handled the ball against the Netherlands in the quarterfinal. Then came the referee assignment that made even neutral fans stop and stare. Ahead of the France vs Morocco quarterfinal, a game Argentina wasn't even playing in, FIFA handed the officiating duties to an entirely Argentine crew. That made Facundo Tello the first referee at this tournament to work with an all-Argentine crew. And given the history between Argentina and France on the international stage, the reaction was never going to be quiet. Fans immediately connected it to 2022, where Argentina had beaten France on penalties in the World Cup final in Qatar. Social media didn't wait for kickoff. One post that spread fast argued all Argentina referees for a France match. FIFA trying everything to rig the World Cup for Argentina once again. Another simply asked why every official assigned to the match came from the same country. FIFA's answer was that merit decided the appointment, nothing more. FIFA stood firm, saying every official in the tournament was selected purely on merit. That explanation didn't land with a fan base that had just watched Egypt go out on a disallowed goal 3 days earlier. And it's worth saying, France and Morocco themselves stayed quiet about it. France kept their heads down and stayed focused on Morocco, and the players didn't engage with the noise. The noise came from everywhere around them instead: supporters, former players, entire timelines lighting up the moment the officiating list dropped. By the time that appointment was made public, the pattern had a name in every comments section: bias toward Argentina, and specifically toward keeping Messi's tournament alive. Al Jazeera's own reporting on the Egypt match put it in stark terms, framing the entire discussion around whether the outcome had been shaped by something bigger than football, describing how experts were questioning political influence and the need to keep Messi's side in the World Cup amid Egypt's heartbreak. This is the part where you have to understand what a small group of referees means at this level. There are only a handful of officials trusted with knockout stage World Cup games, when the same country's flag keeps showing up favorably in the margins of decisions. A non-review here, a disallowed goal there, a strange treatment substitution somewhere else. It doesn't take a conspiracy for players and coaches across multiple federations to start comparing notes. It just takes enough matches, and by the time Egypt went out, this tournament had given everyone enough matches. Once Egypt's complaint went in, the conversation stopped being about one match and one referee. It became a conversation between federations who don't normally have a reason to talk to each other at all. Start with Egypt's own paper trail because it's the most detailed. Their federation didn't just vent, they laid out the specifics in writing. The statement said several decisions during the game had directly affected the outcome, and it went into detail on exactly which ones. Much of the anger centered on a goal by Mostafa Zico in the 62nd minute that would have doubled Egypt's lead. Disallowed after a VAR review identified a foul by an Egyptian player in the build-up. Then came the second grievance. Egypt's frustration deepened late in the match when appeals for a penalty after Hamdi Fathi went down under a challenge were waved away, before Argentina went upfield and scored the winner. Two grievances, one written complaint, one federation president formally requesting the removal of a World Cup referee mid-tournament. That's not a fan on social media. That's an official body putting its name on a document handed to FIFA. And Egypt wasn't speaking in a vacuum, because Austria had already flagged almost the identical complaint weeks earlier. A foul not given, a VAR check that went nowhere, a manager on record questioning the outcome. Cape Verde had already watched a treatment stoppage bend in Argentina's favor in the biggest moment of their own tournament. So when Egypt's complaint landed on FIFA's desk, it wasn't an isolated letter. It was the third federation this tournament with a near-identical story, and the first one willing to put it in a formal complaint. That's the moment neutral observers stopped treating this as one bad night for one referee, and started asking whether the pattern was bigger than any single match. One detailed breakdown of the incident laid the accumulation argument out clearly, explaining that the case against Argentina is built on accumulation. One decision might be explained, two can be debated. But when a disallowed goal, late penalty appeals, a furious coach and a stoppage time winner all happen in the same match, fans stop treating the incidents separately and start seeing a pattern, especially when the beneficiary is the team with the tournament's biggest star. That's exactly the sentiment now spreading between locker rooms. Not one federation calling foul, a running tally growing sport by sport, complaint by complaint. Then, right as Egypt's paperwork was landing at FIFA headquarters, a second front opened up entirely unrelated to referees, and it made every federation still in the tournament pay even closer attention to how Argentina was being treated institutionally. Reports broke that the FBI had launched an investigation into the Argentine Football Association's financial activities in the United States over allegations of possible money laundering, according to a report by Argentine daily La Nación. The scope being described was enormous. A Florida-based company that reportedly manages the AFA's financial operations abroad is also under investigation, with documents reportedly showing at least $260 million in AFA revenue, routed through accounts at 5 separate U.S. financial institutions. The federation's president, Claudio Tapia, was named directly. Tapia has previously faced legal and political scrutiny. In March, he was charged with tax evasion, and he's also been in an ongoing dispute with Argentine President Javier Milei over the ownership structure of the country's football clubs, and the timing made it impossible to separate from what was happening on the pitch. While Tapia was in Miami with the national team during the tournament, federal authorities were moving forward with a separate investigation, with FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors sitting down with businessman Guillermo Tifoni in Miami for a meeting that ran more than 2 hours. No charges have been filed. At this point, no formal U.S. charges have been filed, and the investigation is reportedly still in its early stages, as authorities determine whether the evidence is strong enough to pursue a criminal case under American law. But put yourself in the shoes of a rival federation watching all of this land in the same 72 hours. A disallowed goal against Egypt, an all-Argentine officiating crew for someone else's quarterfinal. And now a federal investigation into the same association's finances, for teams already suspicious about how decisions were bouncing. It read like confirmation that something bigger than one referee's whistle was going on around this team. By the time Egypt's complaint and the FBI story broke in the same week, this World Cup wasn't just dealing with a refereeing argument. It was dealing with a tournament that had been simmering with political tension from the opening weeks. And Argentina's match against Egypt became the flashpoint where football and politics collided in front of a global audience. During that same round of 16 tie, something happened in the stands that had nothing to do with VAR, and everything to do with the atmosphere surrounding the match. An Argentina fan was seen waving an Israeli flag during the match against Egypt, drawing attention amid wider political tensions surrounding the game, with some observers viewing the gesture as a possible provocation toward Egypt's coach Hassam Hassan, who had dedicated Egypt's historic first-ever World Cup knockout victory to the people of Gaza. That single image spread just as fast as the disallowed goal did, and it fed directly into the sense among Egypt's camp that the entire occasion had been stacked against them before the whistle even blew. This wasn't the tournament's only brush with politics either. Just a day before Egypt's exit, FIFA had already drawn fire for a decision involving the United States team. FIFA was facing renewed scrutiny following Argentina's comeback win over Egypt, just a day after the governing body was criticized for overturning U.S. striker Folarin Balogun's suspension following an intervention by U.S. President Donald Trump. 2 staff members from the American camp were also disciplined without explanation around the same stretch of matches. 2 staff members of the U.S. football team were suspended by FIFA from their round of 16 game against Belgium, and FIFA did not explain why it imposed the discipline on team manager Sam Zapatka and USSF Vice President of Security Frank Panel. So by the time Egypt's federation went public with its complaint, it wasn't landing on a tournament that trusted FIFA's neutrality to begin with. It was landing on one already primed to believe the worst. A tournament where a president had reportedly intervened in a suspension, where staff members had been quietly punished with no reason given, and where a fan's flag inside a stadium had already turned one match into a symbol of something much bigger than football. That's the backdrop against which every remaining federation is now reading its own fixture list. Switzerland, who play Argentina next, watched all of this unfold in real time, before their own quarterfinal date was even confirmed. France, who had just been handed an all-Argentine officiating crew for a game against Morocco, watched it too. Morocco themselves, the first African nation through to consecutive World Cup quarterfinals, had every reason to notice how Egypt's African neighbors had just been treated in a knockout tie. Norway, Belgium, England, Spain. Every side left in the draw now has a reason to look twice at who's holding the whistle in their next match, because the last team that trusted the officials to be neutral against Argentina went home with a formal complaint and a coach in tears. And it isn't just the coaches and federations feeling it. Analysts covering the tournament day to day have started framing the entire back half of the World Cup around this exact question, whether the competition can still be trusted to treat every team the same way. Once the biggest star left in it needs a result. One widely read breakdown of the whole saga put the stakes plainly, noting that the answers about what the VAR team actually saw matter, because the World Cup has moved into its most sensitive stage, and one unexplained knockout controversy can shape the way fans view the next match, especially with Argentina now headed toward a quarterfinal against Switzerland. That's the environment the remaining teams are playing in right now. Every touchline conversation, every pre-match press conference, every officiating appointment gets read through the same lens. Is this one going to go the same way Egypt's did? So where does all of this actually leave the tournament? With 4 days left before the semifinals get decided, Argentina are still through. The result against Egypt stands, the complaint hasn't overturned a scoreline, and Messi's side moved on to face Switzerland with the argument still raging around them, rather than in front of them. On the pitch, nothing has changed for the champions. Off it, almost everything has. Egypt's federation is still waiting on a response to its formal complaint, and the pressure they applied clearly rattled enough people that the conversation hasn't died down the way most post-match controversies usually do within a week. Hassan, still processing what was likely his final match as a national team coach on this stage, made clear he intends to keep making noise about it rather than let it fade. His federation's letter is sitting with FIFA right now, asking for a referee to be pulled from the rest of the competition entirely, a request FIFA has not publicly answered. Meanwhile, the financial story around the Argentine Federation keeps developing on its own separate track, entirely apart from anything that happens on the pitch. Reporters are still chasing details on the scope of what investigators are looking at, and until that inquiry produces an answer one way or another, it's going to keep sitting next to every headline about Argentina's on-field results, whether the two things are actually connected or not. As one report on the case put it plainly, for a federation that has spent years celebrating trophies and global success, the emergence of an FBI investigation ensures that questions about governance and financial transparency will remain part of the conversation until authorities reach a conclusion. And the officiating conversation isn't done either. France and Morocco played their quarterfinal under an all-Argentine crew, with barely a complaint from either camp on the record. But the noise around that appointment hasn't gone away. It's simply waiting for the next flashpoint to bring it roaring back. Every remaining fixture now carries that same undertone. Whoever gets the whistle for Argentina's next knockout match is going to be picked apart before a ball is even kicked, because that's what happens once a tournament's neutral trust takes a hit this size. What's clear is that this has stopped being a story about one disallowed goal in one round of 16 match. It's a story about a chorus that kept growing. A head coach calling it unfair on camera, a federation putting a complaint in writing, television pundits with no stake in the result backing the argument up, other federations recognizing their own grievances in Egypt's, and now a federal investigation running underneath all of it. Whatever happens in the final rounds of this World Cup, the teams still standing are watching every decision that goes Argentina's way, with a level of suspicion that didn't exist before that Tuesday night in Atlanta. And until FIFA gives a real answer to Egypt's complaint, that suspicion isn't going anywhere. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content. Egypt goal disallowed VAR controversy, the Daily Star. Al Jazeera Argentina vs Egypt second half controversy. ESPN Egypt FA cannot remain silent. NBC News Egypt files complaint over referee decisions. Sky Sports Hassam Hassan says officiating unfair. Sky Sports FIFA receive complaint from Egypt. Al Jazeera Egypt criticizes influential refereeing. Yahoo Sports FIFA's obsession with Argentina. Yahoo Sports fans question referee decision for Argentina vs Cape Verde. List of 2026 FIFA World Cup controversies, Wikipedia. World Cup schedule blog, Argentina-Egypt referee controversy analysis. Athlon Sports FIFA decision sparks debate before France vs Morocco. Al Jazeera World Cup 2026 quarterfinals schedule and Egypt dispute. Yahoo Sports bracket results, round of 16 recap. Yahoo Sports FBI probecast shadow over Argentina's run. Republic World AFA under FBI scanner. The Daily Star Argentine FA under FBI watch. Athlon Sports FBI makes major move against AFA. The Business Standard FBI investigates AFA over money laundering. The Business Standard FBI investigates AFA over money laundering. https://www.tbsnews.net/sports/FBI investigates Argentine Football Association over alleged money laundering $1,483,400.